Easy now. Papa got things making hands
come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finna change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you plenty of fences.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael-Shawn Dugard. Make sure you follow me on the tweet machine. You can follow me at Mike Dugard. That is MikeDugar. Still got my blue check. Shout out to Elon, man. Let me keep my joint. I appreciate that. Also, shout out to everybody who watches us on YouTube. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. That's man to man, the number 2 man. We appreciate all that love and support. Chris, holla at him.
What is good, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206. And I want to give a shout out to everyone that has subscribed on YouTube. We have just passed 2,400 subscribers, so we're on the up and up. Shout out to that podcast for those that know what we're talking about here. But we'll keep rising. So let's try to get to 3,000 before the season starts. Let's just throw that out there. What is that, 600 away? So keep subscribing. Tell a friend about it. We have a lot of guests on. We recently had on Nate Tice breaking down quarterbacks and tight ends. We talked a little offensive line with Nick Baumgartner. That was a great episode. And then we had, who was our first one? Deontay Lee doing linebackers. So we got more content coming for you guys, but make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel. That's Seahawks Man-to-Man. We'll have more heat coming for you as we get closer and closer to summertime. More guests, you name it, we are on it. So thank you guys again.
Yeah, appreciate all the love from our guests on that. It was really good insight. I feel very informed about the draft going into it. And we're still, how many days away from the draft are we? We're recording on Tuesday. So
22, 23?
Something like that. That's not math I feel comfortable doing on the show. But yeah, a few weeks. I do know it is a few weeks. So it's good we got all that draft prep done from or we're not done with it, but it's good we got all that insight from our guests because this is our mailbag episode, of which a lot of your guys' questions are about the draft, which is great. Just telling one of the big bosses here at The Athletic, like, people are really tuned in to the draft this year. I mean, the Seahawks fans usually are, but like, I can feel the difference this year. And what year was that? They had 3 picks. It was 2021 draft where they took D, Trey Brown, and then Stone. Going into that draft with 3 picks was just like, the draft just felt like a thing that's going to happen at some point. Now it feels like a moment.
Yep.
And the questions and all the theories and the prospect breakdown has been just great. So a lot of great questions to get into about the draft. We will dive into all the ones you guys have, some great ones. So yeah, let's roll. Ready, Chris?
Let's do this. Twitter questions. Here we go. This first one comes from @ThanosNix. Can you guys explain the Tyree Wilson hype? He's constantly mocked to the Seahawks, but is he someone that can play out as an edge in the 3-4? He seems like a classic 4-3 edge. Obviously, he didn't test, but his projected 40 was 4.8, and that's definitely not the Trayvon Walker juice.
All right, this is a great question. I appreciate. I'm glad we're starting with this because I was of the same impression before I had a chance to watch Tyree from Texas Tech, and yeah, he's built more like a 4-3 edge. Like, that's not an inaccurate like description based off how he's kind of built. He's got the longest arms in the history of arms. It looks like he hasn't tested yet. I believe he's going to work out at a Texas Tech pro day not a pro day, like a private workout, I believe. He's got like a foot injury, I think. But when you watch Tyree, he fits what they want to do. Like, he honestly fits whatever you want to do as a team. 4-3, 3-4, hand in the dirt, stand up. Like, at Texas Tech, despite being like 272 pounds. He might even be heavier. I need to look that up. But despite being how heavy and how long he is, he plays actually from a 2-point stance a lot in their scheme. Like, I've watched like 4 or 5 games of Texas Tech from just this past year. I don't know about previous years, but just this past year, yeah, he was standing up a lot. He looked more like doing what a Darrell Taylor would do in this scheme than he looked like doing like a Carlos Dunlap in the scheme. And they had him dropping. It wasn't like super great, but he can do it. It's not like you have to teach him a new skill in that regard. So he can do that. He can rush the passer from a stand up or hand in the dirt stuff. He's super long. So when he gets his hands on tackles or guards, but when he gets his hands on just whoever, when he gets his hand on you first, he can walk you back. I think it's a game against Texas this year. He just full on. I don't know how good Texas's left tackle is, but he walked that young man right back into the quarterback, and I was like, yeah, this is the type of shit that if you watch him on tape, that explains that. I can see why a team would look at him and be like, that's not a top 5 pick, but just like that, to answer the question here, that explains the hype for him to Seattle. Like, yeah, if you just look at the measurables, you're like, come on, Mike, come on, Chris. We getting it. We putting square peg in a round hole again. We doing the Carlos Dunlap, Benson Mayowa thing all over again. And I was of that same boat. You can kind of see it in some of my coverage in like January and February, and you can see where I got to a point where I watched him, and then talked to more people who've watched him a lot more and know more about D-line play than I do, and it's like, oh, okay, he can do this if need be. He wouldn't be out of place. But kind of, he's like a bigger, not the same exact skill set, but like a bigger Will Anderson. Like just how Will Anderson can do it, Tyree can do it too. Because I'm with you guys. I don't want to see no more Benson Mayowa types in coverage and mismatches. Not because Benson Mayowa is like a bad player. It's just not it's not his get down. So yeah, I that hopefully that helps explain it. I am interested in how he tests as well. But that is why he's being mocked there. I mean, shit, Chris, you probably seen it. There's some mocks that I've seen him go higher than Will Anderson.
Yeah, and I think the scenario is just what the Seahawks need. They need someone on the edge that can do it. As you mentioned, he's not great at it, and maybe he can get better, but why take a guy when you know what your weaknesses are right now? Why take a guy that you can work on during the season when the goal is to win a Super Bowl? Do you think in the scheme that you have, is he going to be able to come in there and make a positive impact from the start, from week 1, from preseason? And if the question is, oh, we're working on it, that probably wasn't your guy then. And that could be the issue. Or they could really take him and it all works out. They don't have him being the stand-up pass rusher, even though that is kind of his strength, as you saw on film.
Yeah.
So they really have to figure out what they are going to do. And I guess from the outside looking in, people would say he's a quick learner. He's able to adjust. He sideline to sideline. He has that strength and ability and speed to do those things, but maybe the Seahawks don't see it that way and they don't take him. So I guess it's going to come down to how they view their board, who's available when they get to the 5th pick, and if he's there, would they take him over a Jalen Carter, who we'll get to later? That just, personally, I wouldn't do that, but I can understand the dilemma here and why he's been mocked at Seattle, especially how he played in college and what the Seahawks would ask of him to do so.
Yeah, I think one more thing on him real fast. Well, 2 more things. One thing is that, so for example, one person that they drafted recently who kind of doesn't fit that would be Tyreek Smith. I think Tyreek was like almost exclusively a 4-3 edge guy at Ohio State in the 2021 season. Yeah, 2021 season. But he said that they practiced everything, like 2-point, 3-point stance stuff at Ohio State. But in the games, he was still mostly 4-3. And that's a guy you would want to like, okay, I gotta just get you more comfortable with the thing. But as we learned with Charles Cross last year, like just because, even if you are a guy like that, just because you didn't do the thing in college doesn't mean you can't. I don't even think that applies to Tyree though. Like I think that he did the thing they want them to do. Like stylistically, it fits. And then the long arms are just such a benefit with the run stopping as well. Like if a puller comes to him, tackle guard or whatever, the run scheme goes to him. Like I said, he's gonna get his hand on the guy first, and he's strong too. He's so big. So like setting the edges, just how you saw Boye do it last year as a rookie, I could see Tyree coming in. Even if the pass rush stuff doesn't flash right away, he does seem like a guy like should be good against the run, good athlete, strong. And then like it wouldn't surprise me if he like bats down like 4 balls at the line because his arms are just, like I said, the longest arms in the history of arms. Yeah, like his shit is crazy. So that's why he's being mocked there. Not saying they'll take him, but that there's some validity to why mocking him there for sure.
We got 2 questions on basically trading down, trading up, and they're from Zach and Mookie Alexander. So of the picks 5 and 20, which do you think the Seahawks could try to trade down from?
I think both. But I think that 20 is more natural. And I've said this before, I've written it down. Like, I really don't think in 13 drafts together, Pete Carroll and John Snyder have had 20 first-round grades on the prospects, which is why when they have a pick outside of the top whenever they ever shoot, they traded back from 12 one year before the year they took Bruce. They actually had the 12th pick and traded back from that. So they'll trade back from anything. So 20 seems like super logical for to trade back. I guarantee they don't have 20 first round grades in this class. They just don't. It doesn't mean that one of the guys they have a first round grade on couldn't fall to them, right? Because everyone's grades are not the same. I remember last year, who was the Cowboys' first pick? It was like a guard, I want to say, or a tackle. I think it was the kid from Tulsa. I want to say, and that was a little surprising for a lot of people who didn't have first round grade on him. But I think eventually, Tyler Smith from Tulsa, right? I believe so.
Correct.
Yeah. And there, I think it was Jerry Jones who like had like a little card with their board on it at the press conference, and people like zoomed in and figured that like who was on the board. It was, I think, our guy John covers the Cowboys for The Athletic was able to decipher who was on the board. But I just bring that scenario up to say that like everyone's board isn't the same. So the Seahawks should have 16 first round grades. Let's just throw a number. Let's say it's 16. If all 16 guys are gone by the time they're on the clock at 20, they're gonna try to trade back. They even tried to trade back from they traded back at a pick 18 before taking Rashad Penny in 2018. So like it gets dicey. So I do think that's the more likely one out of the two. Not to say they won't try and trade. I believe you reported at The Athletic. I haven't read the full story yet, but it was brought to my attention. We have a story detailing how the Bears and Panthers ended up making that trade with the Carolina moving up. And in that story report that Snyder talked to Scott Fitter of the Panthers, like, yo, what's up with pick 9? Oh, what's up with pick 5? Nothing went anywhere, obviously. But like the fact that Johnny even already talked to his man Scott about it shows you that they're willing to trade back. I think the other reason I think trading back from 20 will be a little more likely than 5 is because I think it'll be easier to find a partner at 20 than it will be at 5. I just don't know who someone's going to come up for at 5. I think that'll be dang. I use a lot of numbers in that sentence, but with the 5th pick, I'm just not sure how desirable some of these trade up options are. Like, let's say, Chris, the board falls. Actually, I guess the it would have to be for a quarterback. That was it. I don't see anybody trading up for, Witherspoon, Gonzalez, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter. I just don't think the trade ups options are there. Whereas if it's a quarterback, it makes more sense. I know we're not too far removed from the Dolphins went from 12 to 6, I think, to get Jalen Waddle. I don't think we see something like that for a non-quarterback prospect. So, yeah, I think it'll be easier. Whereas at 20, you will see some teams who maybe on their back end of the draft who are like, all right, we're picking 28. We don't have 28 first-round grades. So one of our guys is slipping. Let's call Seattle. Maybe we can get him at 20. Maybe we can get the Notre Dame tight end or one of these, Joey Porter from Penn State who has – Chris, Joey Porter has 34-inch arms?
I did not know that.
Corner from Penn State. That's insane. Those are insanely long arms. I don't think I've ever seen a corner with long arms like that. Sorry, got sidetracked. But, I do think there's going to be some people trying to jump ahead of Baltimore, jump ahead of the Chargers, jump ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who picked 24th, I believe. I think in that range, you'll get a lot of teams who need a lot of the same stuff, and that's where we might see a run on certain positions. A run on corners may start there. A run on receivers could start there. A run on tackles could start there with the kid from Tennessee, the kid from Ohio State. There's one more I'm forgetting too. So yeah, I think that they're going to be easier to find a partner at 20 than it would be at 5, which sounds crazy because the 5th pick is so valuable. But the Seahawks aren't about to just charge pennies on the dollar for pick 5. They're going to try to get themselves a haul, and I think they're going to have an issue finding that. If the person they want at 5 is not there, I imagine the person everybody else wants at 5 ain't there either. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense. Yeah. I think they would trade back from 20 before 5.
This next one comes from Tanner. Do the Seahawks carry 3 tight ends on the 53-man roster? Will the Seahawks have room for the drafted tight end, or does Disley and Fant, do they miss the cut?
Yeah, that's a good question from Tanner there, because they have been pretty consistent. They've had like 1 or 2 of their numbers change on some of these other spots. Like how many running backs they carry, how many receivers they carry, how many D linemen, how many O linemen, safeties or whatever. Those numbers have fluctuated on cut down day over the last like few years, at least since I've been on the beat since 2017. Tight end has stayed pretty stable. It's usually been about 3. It might have been 3 every cut down day. I have to go back and look, but so that is it's a very interesting question from Tanner there. I think that a move at tight end during the either late towards the end of training camp, maybe early September, I could see a move like that if they draft one. Like, let's say they draft one, doesn't matter really what round, but let's say they do in like the third round. Something they take the kid from BYU, forget his name right now, or the kid from Purdue, the kid I like from Iowa. Say they take one of them, right? Then you have, and Disley's healthy by the second preseason game. So you got you got Noah, you got Colby, and you got, Sam Laporta or something like that, right? Iowa. I could see a move with one of those guys, maybe in September. Remember what year was that they traded Nick Vannett in like September? I think that was what?
2019?
Yeah, I think it was 2019. They traded him to the Steelers, I think it was. Like I could see something like that, particularly if a team has one of their tight ends blow his knee out or something where another team's like, damn, we need a tight end. Let's call Seattle. Particularly with Colby and Noah, who are both on expiring deals. Now, Noah could get extended or something, but Noah's in the final year of his deal. Colby's in the final year of his deal, I believe. So either one of them, if the Seahawks are like, well, all right, let's flip this for a pick. We have excess tight end, because we have also Tyler Mabry and this kid we just drafted. Disley's back. He's under contract for a while. Sure, they can flip this. Who knows? Especially if Noah like blossoms a little bit more. So, yeah, I think 3 is going to actually remain the number, especially if they draft one. And yeah, I would anticipate a move there. It's not like a huge thing, but it's one of those. I'm glad Tanner asked it because I was thinking about that when I was mocking when we were talking about Chris. When we were on our last pod, we were talking with Nate about the tight ends. I was like, if they do draft one, someone's out of here. Probably. It just probably depends on, who it is. The interesting one, Chris, would be like, if you were to flip Noah or something like that, what would you get?
Fifth pick, or fifth round.
See,
probably fourth or fifth, I would guess.
Because Noah's actually a really good player, so it's like he's a first round pick. Let's see, how old will he be this year? He is
29, right?
I'd be forgetting he's from Nebraska. He is, and he went to Iowa. Goddamn. He turns 26 in November. So
close.
25 right now. Like,
so he might get a third round.
Yeah, like depending on how desperate a team is, maybe a late third, maybe a team like trades like a comp third, that's like pick 100. Maybe they lost a black guy, so they get like a comp pick. For real, that's how it goes. Yeah, that is how it goes. Yeah. So side note. I got to find a picture. I'll tweet the picture after the pod comes out. Is a picture of the 49ers. I think it's like all the former 49ers people who are either head coaches right now or executives somewhere else. It got taken at the owners' meetings. And it's like Kyle Shanahan and all his former people. It shows you, it puts in perspective all the black people that they've lost, which is why the Niners have a bazillion comp picks every year. Boy, Mike McDaniel stands out so freaking much in that picture as like, how the hell did they get 3 comp picks for that dude? Like getting the same number of comp picks for D'Amico Ryans as you do for Mike McDaniel is just criminal. It's just criminal. That picture just puts it in so much perspective. Like, look at that guy compared to the other guys they've lost. Anyway, sorry, that's my little rant. But yeah, I'd be interested to see, Chris, who they flip on that, because I think Colby's a good player too.
He showed some flashes.
How tall is Colby? Colby's like what, 6'7"?
6'7"? Yeah.
That's a team that like could use, and he's not. How old is he too? Like he's
really young.
Yeah,
I know that. He's got to be under 24, I think, if that.
He just turned 24 in January.
Yeah, he's young.
So that's another valuable asset. Yeah, they got the tight end room would get interesting if they draft a guy high. If they draft a guy in like the 6th round or something, it's not as interesting a conversation. But yeah, if they draft a guy anywhere in the top 100, somebody's probably getting moved. Someone who's already.
There's a sign. This next one comes from Chris Leeper. Do you think John and Pete learned from last year on the value of not reaching too much for guys outside of the consensus rankings?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think last year was as I thought. I was with people on this. I think we talked about it on our pod too. They were just like they didn't overthink it. They just did the right shit last year. Um, but what I've learned from talking to people who have drafted before, been in those rooms, not necessarily just Seahawks people too. I'm talking people who are currently front office, currently scouts, have been scouts in the past, been GMs in the past. Every draft really is its own entity, and a lot of it, when we give this gets talked about, but not as much as I think people it should get talked about. A lot of it is how like what's the strength of the class, and like because every class is not strong. There was one year I was at the combine and it was very clear like the first tight end wasn't coming off the board in the top 50. I forget what class it was, but it's the one that has the UW kid who's from here. I think 200 is it Hunter Bryant, Harrison Bryant. What is his? It's Hunter Bryant. I want to say it had him and Savon Ahmed in it. That class, whatever class that is. I remember being at the combine and people being like, "Yeah, this tight end class is not strong." Right. So like when you talk about consensus and like lessons being learned, like everything doesn't apply year to year. Some classes are super strong at like tackle. Like last year was like purportedly a very strong tackle class. This year, not as much. Right. So it's like all of that it gets looked at in a vacuum a lot more than we think. Particularly when you're trying to make a decision, you can only have your past be influencing your present, but so much. Like you're on the clock, and but 4 or 5 minutes to make a pick or whatever the hell it is. Like you can only draw from your past so much. And some of those years that they reached, they probably still don't think they did a reach. Same thing on some of the like last year, they probably got lucky on some picks. Like you just never really know. It's so much of a crapshoot that it's hard to extrapolate, but so many lessons from each draft class. At least this is what according to people I've talked to about it. They have done some reaching in the past, for sure. But and I think have we talked about the LJ thing on here before, Chris?
Regarding
As like a reach that I'm pretty sure they realized was a reach.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I think
Anytime.
they probably realized in real time, like, oh, we probably should not have pushed a defensive lineman up on our board just because we traded Frank 4 days ago. Like that was probably not the best thing to do. It's probably the best thing to just take a guy. Like they learned that right away. So I think yes, they have learned, but I don't think last year was just the catalyst for that. I think they're always learning every year. The one thing that's going to stay consistent though is them just like plucking dudes from the Senior Bowl. That's they always play. I'm working on a mock now. I was like, I got to throw. I think I just threw a guy in there from the Senior Bowl. I was like, you know what, got to, because I didn't have any guys in there from the Senior Bowl. I was like, I got to have at least one. There's no way they go an entire draft without taking a guy. So and it's so hard to get a consensus too. Like I know Chris's question has to do with the consensus rankings. It's so hard to gather. There's so many new GMs, so many new coaching staffs. Like there's so many variables. The draft is hard as shit, guys. That's really what I learned.
This next one comes from Pat McCarron. Who should the Seahawks draft to maximize their chances of winning in 2023-24?
All right, who do you think, Chris?
So I'll just give you, like, if I was in the boardroom, if I was doing it, I'll give you the top 3 guys I would take. So this is what, 5, 20, and what is it, 37?
And 52.
Well, I'm just giving top 3, though. I'm not giving the 4 picks. I'm just giving 3 guys.
All right.
That's all I'm doing. Just quick 3 names. So I'm taking Jalen Carter.
Okay.
That's going to, I think, solidify that defensive line. I think that adding that piece makes it that much better instantly, based on what I've seen, based on what everybody's saying. I know there's a lot of off the field stuff, but just based on that alone, I want to see that. I want to get that deal done, get him locked in. Now, this is where things get tricky. The second pick. I really want to take the young receiver out of Ohio State. But I like Dareke Young, and we'll get to a question about that later on. So I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I think what I will do, though, is I'll go defensive end. And I know he probably won't even be available there, but if he is at 20, give me Tyree Wilson. If he falls, which that's quite a fall. I think that's what, 7 spots that he's projected.
Yeah, I mean, he could. You never
could,
know.
but this is just like everything works out. He's there. What? We get Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson? Sign me up. And then with my 37th pick, I will go a tight end. I
Which
don't know
one?
which tight. I don't know. That's where I'm stuck.
Come on, give us a guy. Come on, man. Give us a guy. You're on the clock here, man. Give us a guy.
Do I get 2 minutes?
You get less than that. You get less than that.
Who are some guys that let me see.
There's Musgrave. There's Kincaid.
No,
There's
the
Michael
one
Mayer.
guy that we talked about that I think would be available at 37, I would say go ahead.
Darnell Washington from Georgia.
He's raw, Mike. No. You know what?
Big ass dude too.
This is probably reaching quite a bit because I'll take Sam Laporta.
That's fine too.
Give me Sam Laporta. All right.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
I think those three, you answered some questions about the defensive line. Now you get a pass catcher out of the backfield that's young. You have someone that I think his play style will fit with the Seahawks per se. He's a good route runner. Not that Will Dissly and all these other guys are not. Noah Fant. I think he has the balance and the quickness to just fit what the Seahawks want to do. What is he, 6'4", 6'3", 250? Sign me up. I think he can be a vital piece in the run game as well, something that the Seahawks need their tight ends to do because they do a lot of personnel where there's 3 tight ends out there. Mm-hmm. And they can still throw from that, but they also like to run it as well. And having someone like Laporta who can potentially run block at the next level only makes his offense that much better, especially with the question marks on Will Dissly. Bring in another young guy. I like that move, and those would be my top 3 picks. I answered some D-line questions. I think you can still get a linebacker probably with the 52nd pick, but I said I was going to give you top 3, so those are my top 3 that I would go with.
All right, so if we're talking about guys who can help win like this year, which is important to me because I think you can take a guy in the first round with the thought that he can help you the next year. Like I'm especially when you're picking in the back half of the round, particularly in the first round. Yeah, I think that's fine depending on how your roster is constructed. And some guys are just not ready. So I think that's and just getting a year ahead of things. Like if you got a guy like on a rookie deal, you don't think that you're gonna like re-up the next year, the next offseason. So you draft ahead. Like if the Bengals were to draft a receiver high because they're like, we're not about to pay T. Higgins or something like that. Because we have to pay Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I'm like, oh, okay, then yeah, take Jackson Smith and Jigba now, right? Instead of waiting until next year when you need one. You know, planning a year ahead is like a good thing to do too. If the Commanders did the same thing with that edge rusher, like we're not about to pay Chase Young, so let's take Nolan Smith now, early, or whoever, Lucas, whatever from Iowa, whatever. You guys get my point. Drafting ahead is fine. But if you're talking about just like, all right, I need a guy to come in and help me. Talent-wise, I'm taking Jalen Carter as well. I'm with you on that too. I think he comes in and helps you right away. Michael Mayer, tight end from Notre Dame. I think he helps you right away.
See, I was tempted, but I was like, man.
he helps today. And I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba helps you like today if you're the Seahawks. Like that helped. All 3 of those guys help you wherever you take them. They help you like right now. I think some of the other spots would be tougher. Like I think even though I like Tyree Wilson, I think it'd be tougher for him to help you like today. Because some of it's just getting on the field too. Like even like for example, I love Drew Sanders in this draft from Arkansas. But I think that he would initially, I think he could end up beating out like a Devin Bush at some point, but I don't know when. Right? Like, does that happen week 1? Does it happen by Halloween, Thanksgiving? Like, where are we talking about here at this point? Whereas I think all of those guys I mentioned, like, yeah, I'm starting you week 1, like from the get go. So those would be my top guys. I think I would some other spots I would have some issues figuring out. Like if Jordan Addison would probably be another one too. I think he could easily be wide receiver 3, like from the jump. And I think Michael Mayer could be like tight end 2. From the jump.
He's nasty.
Yeah, those would be my guys.
He's really good. Okay, perfect. This next one comes from Adam the Redhead. Who is a day 3 guy you think could end up on the Seahawks and contribute as a rookie?
I love this one because they do find a day 3 guy like every couple of years. Like, oh, he's the dude. I don't think they'd find another Tariq Woolen. They got lucky there. But I do think they could find a guy who's like equivalent like Kobe Bryant, who's also a day 3 guy who's productive. I got 2. One would be Trey Tucker. They're both receivers. Trey Tucker from Cincinnati. He is cat-like quickness, man. Oh my goodness, Senior Bowl, loved it. Don't know how well he'd hold up. He's like 180 pounds, so that's tough. But that's why you're in day 3. The other one would be Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss, their receiver, who is not 180 pounds. That boy is built. I don't have his exact measurements in front of me. Let me see if I can Google that fast. There's only so many guys named Mingo in this draft. Yep, it's just Barkevius and him. I wonder if they're related. Let's see. Mingo is 6'1", 220, and he ran a 4.4. Sign me up. Yeah, I think he's another guy who was at the Senior Bowl, who was okay, not great, but his good reps were good. Like if you guys are bored on Twitter one day, just like type in Jonathan Mingo and just slide to the videos section, and whoever posts some clip, you'd be like, this guy's fucking great. So like imagine Dareke Young, but maybe faster. I can't remember what Dareke ran, but he just looks fast. So yeah, those would be my 2 guys that they would have to cut their teeth on special teams first, which is fine. But if they got in, I would imagine them like eating early. Like they would be preseason like favorites in Seattle, I think.
I'm going to go running back, and I'll go Muhammad Ibrahim. And boy, is he him, as his last name indicates. He's not the biggest dude. He's only 5'8", 200 pounds, 203. I think that's what he was at the combine. But he's someone that runs very physically. He's attacking everyone. Hell, he had 20 touchdowns last season.
Damn, really? Jesus
yeah. 1,600 yards and 20 TDs. He has a nose for the end zone. Questionable with injuries because he did tear his Achilles. So that is something that might that was in 2021, that is. So that's something that's, I mean, it's because I just said he ran for 20 touchdowns last season, but he's had injuries, sidelined by injury, what? At least 1 game in 4 of the past 5 seasons. So not a great rep there, but I think with how the Seahawks run the football, he fits exactly what they want to do. A guy that's not afraid of contact. The running back room definitely needs another young stud to come in and give you some energy. Not that DJ Dallas doesn't, but right now there's only 2 running backs on the roster.
Right. You just need another guy.
At this point, obviously they're probably going to take someone maybe in the 3rd round, but if you're looking for someone late in the draft that probably will be available around 5th and 6th, maybe the 7th if that's the case, I would definitely look at Muhammad Ibrahim out of Minnesota. I think this is someone that would fit right in. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but if you 3rd and 3, he'll get you 10 yards. and if you can do that consistently, find the end zone, I think fantasy owners are going to love him. And I think the 12s will love him too. So that's one guy that I'm looking at that can come in and just revamp that running back room and bring some youth and some talent to that room. Because I mentioned there's only 2 guys right now, and they need some bodies ASAP.
Real quick before you do the next question, I just don't want to sell Dareke Young short here. He's 6'2" and at 224 pounds, it ran 4.44. So like him and Mingo, like freak athletes, like in the same realm. Like I like both of them. So throw them in the competition and let them roll.
Them boys is sliding down the field for sure.
4.44 at 224 pounds is crazy.
This next one comes from Holly, and she wants to know, what's the chance that Pete and John pull the trigger and draft a quarterback at 5? Would a QB to sit behind Geno be a wise choice, or should they just pick a defensive player instead at 5?
Okay, that was 3 questions from Holly, all good ones. I would just, so we can focus on the better parts of the question, I think. I don't know the chance that they draft a quarterback. I would like to think if Anthony Richardson's there, they would take him. That would be my guess. If Will Levis is there, I don't think they would do that. But it's so hard to tell right now. Like, I don't even know if they know the answer to that, to be honest. If Bryce or CJ got there, that I'd push that to like 90%. I think, particularly if Bryce was there, I think that's just, but I think we can all agree that that's probably not going to happen. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. Now, would a QB to sit behind Geno be a wise choice or take a defensive player instead? I think that's a far more fascinating question. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. But so, Chris, where I'm kind of coming from, I'm so torn on this question. I think about this question a lot. Every draft story I do, I think about a version of this question because it's the difference between a short-term play and a long-term play. Like taking Anthony Richardson would be great, but the chances are he's not going to help you win anything in 2023. Not because he's not talented, he just probably won't play. You can't help if you don't play. I mean, you can, but like your impact on the game is very minimal when you don't play. Like being on a scout team or whatever, it's but so helpful, right? So that's just tough for me because I do think the window is kind of now. So I'm struggling with that. So I wouldn't call it unwise, but man, that's because here's the other thing, Chris, that I'm struggling with. I don't even think if you take Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, I'm a bigger AR guy than I am Will Levis guy. I think Gino's going to be good in 2024 too. I just don't think it's already predetermined that Gino stinks in 2023, so they just pass the torch to Anthony Richardson in 2024. Like I think he needs so many more reps at quarterback. He only had 13 starts, I think, at Florida. That's not a lot. So my thing is like, there's no guarantee for me that Anthony would even play in 2024. The Seahawks could back themselves, I think, by taking quarterback at 5. They could back themselves into like a Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers situation where they took Jordan Love thinking like, all right, cool. Aaron's kind of close to being washed. We'll have Jordan in a year, maybe 2 at worst, and then he's going to be our guy. Aaron fucked around and won 2 MVPs and just threw off their whole plan. And not that it's bad to have Jordan, but like Jordan hasn't helped them win a game. Not one. I think the only time he started, they lost, right? So he's like done nothing to help them win. Or he's done like very minimal, I guess I should say. I don't want to say nothing, but like I don't want the Seahawks to be in that position either. And that was pick 26 or whatever, but still the thought process is the same. So because of that, I lean towards a defensive player. And I just say it'd be unwise to take a quarterback, but I just think it's because of how highly I think of Gino and all the things that he was able to do in 2022 and how sustainable I think that'll be in 2023 and probably even 2024. Like I think it's tough. You're taking a guy who at best it starts in 2024. Probably more likely wouldn't start till 2025. And it's like, well, damn, that's a long time for your 5th pick to sit. You just burn in 2 years of him being cheap, And then by then, say he starts in 2025, he's still basically a rookie, like Jordan Love is now if he starts this year. So this would be year 4 for Jordan Love, and it'd be like him making his 2nd regular season start or something. That's crazy. So to avoid that scenario, which I think is very plausible, more plausible than people probably are realizing, I say take a defensive player. That's my vote.
Yeah. I also would just spin it this way, Holly. You're a fan of the Seahawks. Do you want to win this year, put all the chips on this year and winning it, or do you want to look for the future and you'd be okay with potentially taking a quarterback, whoever it is available at 5, right? Now, obviously, a win's a win. Whether you win it now or you win it in 2026, you still get that Super Bowl. But are you willing to sit and wait and see what happens within that? That's something to think about because Pete has said this offseason that they can win with Gino. Based on that statement alone, I would think, okay, you're going to build around Gino. You're going to build the best team possible offensively and defensively to go out there every Sunday to give yourself a chance in the Super Bowl in 2024. And based on that, I think, okay, you do take a defensive guy or you do take a guard or a center just to build this team up around something that you believe in, and that is Gino. Because to Mike's point, I don't think Gino's going to fall off a cliff next season. He could, but I don't see that happening. And with that being said, Gino is not – if the Seahawks do draft a quarterback, Gino's not going to change. He's not going to be like, damn, it's over for me. Gino's going to take that, run with it, and probably come out even better because now he probably believes, the Seahawks don't even believe in me. They're willing to take a guy, number 5, that plays my position. That's basically what they're telling you. Hey, you know what? You had a great year, but we think this guy might be better, and we're gonna push the chips in and see what we can get out of it. But I don't think the Seahawks will do that. I think they will take a defensive player and try to build what they have because they think they can win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith. And then in 2-3 years, so maybe next year they draft a quarterback. Because by then, Geno, depending on how Geno plays this season, will I guess determine what they do at the quarterback position if they don't take one this year. So I too would say draft a defensive player at number 5 and go from there and see how to build this roster around Geno Smith to go into 2023, potentially competing for a Super Bowl, being a serious contender. And but we'll find out after the draft. We'll see how this team looks.
Yeah, I want to throw one more thing in there too. And I've thought about this. This is probably worth its own podcast, but I think one thing I've been thinking about lately is, the idea of like, okay, they have to pick a quarterback here at 5 because when are they going to pick here again? If Geno stinks, they'll pick here again. Probably. Like when are they going to get a quarterback again, Mike, Chris? They'll get one. They'll be in a position to pick one when they need one. Like when their quarterback's not good enough, they'll be back here. Obviously that's not ideal, but like there's a world where they naturally pick here again. Like if they don't pick here again, it's probably because Geno's fine.
Which is okay.
Yeah, so I think it's not as big of a conundrum as all of us are kind of making it out to be. Like if they need if they're a quarterback needy team, they'll be picking in the top 10. Like that's just kind of how it works when you're a QB needy team, for the most part. There's some outliers for that, but for the most part, that's kind of how it goes. The other thing I think is when I was looking around at some of the elite quarterbacks, there's not that many that were top 5 picks. You don't have to be like in the top 5 or whatever. You usually want to be in the top 10, but even then, like you don't have to be. You can trade up or whatever. Like you can make the moves necessary to go get your guy. Obviously, it's nice to naturally get your guy with your native pick, but who are the elite guys that were top 5 picks? Right now with Burrow, Herbert. Who else we got? Was Herbert even a top 5 pick? Was it like pick 6 or something like that? So yeah, it's not a ton. Trevor Lawrence, obviously. Kyler, even Herbert was the 6th pick. So yeah, it's like not like you need, like you can get your guy without like having to take one now, I guess is my point.
This next one comes from Nick Z Red. What's with this Jalen Carter push to Seattle by everyone? With character issues and conditioning issues, he's a total opposite of what Pete and John are looking for, right? So why so everyone quick to say he's a must draft for the Seahawks?
What was this question asker's name again?
Nick Z Red.
All right, Nick, I hear you, but the hype
it's actually, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's more towards the basketball team Knicks. So
okay, sorry. Anyway, it doesn't. But the reason that Jalen's so often mocked, because that boy is for real, because he can ball, and from like a ball player standpoint, he is everything the Seahawks need. Like exactly. Like if they were to like craft a guy, they'd be like, oh, it looks like exactly like this Jalen Carter dude. So that is why he's like, it's like a perfect fit from a style standpoint. He's so violent with his hands, such a good athlete, obviously when he's in shape. It's like if he didn't have these off-field concerns, it'd be like a no-brainer. But I get the question is framed in like the conditioning issues and the racing incident that resulted in the death of a teammate and a Georgia staffer. I get all that. But I don't think he's like the opposite of what they're looking for as a talent. As a talent, it's like, oh, take that guy and don't even think twice about it. But that's why the push. I do think that it's not. I think the question was framed: what's the Jalen Carter push to Seattle? Why this push by everyone? I feel like, and Chris, you're on the radio too, so you probably like look at the text line, or probably you guys have discussed this too. And I've listened to some discussion about this on the other station as well. It feels really split in Seattle right now. You get like a lot of people who are like, stay away from that dude, Malik McDowell Part 2. Please, please, please. And KJ said that on when he was on a radio interview recently too. Then you got another half of people who are like, I don't give a damn. We need elite defensive linemen. Take that dude, throw him in Seattle's culture. He'll mature. Like, and I see both ends of it, but I really don't think. I don't know what feel you've gotten from people, but I really don't think there's a consensus on Jalen in Seattle. Like, I think we're kind of divided.
It's very divided. And real quickly, I think the biggest piece was bringing Bobby back. That's someone that has played the game one way, off the field, nothing. That is someone that can be a positive influence in the locker room if the Seahawks do decide to take him. Now, can he heal all wounds? No, because Bobby was there when Malik McDowell was drafted and something went wrong. So I'm not, saying that Bobby can fix all the issues, but you do have a solid ground piece there that can help try to keep this kid grounded if the Seahawks do in fact draft him. That's just another notch there that can potentially help this team. Is okay, you have a veteran and Bobby, and that can use an example like, hey, this is what happened with Malik, and I'm sure you saw it. We don't want you going on that path, but we want you to be focused, studying the game, getting better each week, and helping this team get better. Because what's the ultimate goal? Super Bowl champions. And if everything works out and they all buy into that, and he becomes the Seahawks number 5 pick, and it works out, and they go to the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be, It's a great pick. Kid turned his life around. And there are positive stories like that. And then there are other stories, Malik McDowell, where things just don't work out. He's in the league still. I think last time I checked, he's with the Cleveland Browns. So
I don't know if he's with Cleveland anymore.
Don't know if he's with Cleveland anymore, but he had an opportunity. He got back in the league, but we don't want to see that again. So we'll see what happens. This next one comes from Cody Marmon. What's going to be the deciding factor between Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson, assuming your boy Mike AR is off the board, Anthony Richardson, that is?
Yeah, I think, and I've said this on the pod before, it really just depends on if the Seahawks deem the racing incident and his disaster of a pro day, Jalen Carter's that is, as an isolated set of incidences or incidences. I don't know if that's a word. Maybe it is. Anyway, if they see it as a blip or a trend, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Did he just have a little rough stretch here in the last 4 months, or is that like a sign of greater decision-making issues? And conditioning issues and work ethic issues? I think they're going to uncover, and maybe have already uncovered, it's probably closer to a trend. Like that, the more I've talked to more people who are familiar with Jalen and Georgia and from other teams, other NFL teams, are just like, yeah, nah, this is not an isolated. It's not an isolated thing. I mean, even the speeding is not an isolated thing. He got yanked before for speeding, before that incident, before they was like racing to Waffle House or wherever the hell they were going, when the fatal accident happened. So yeah, I think you're leaning a little bit more towards trend. And then I was talking to some people. I think this was at the combine. Yeah, it was at the combine after it happened. Like Todd McShay wasn't bugging. You remember that report, Chris, in like December where he was like, "Yo, teams have character concerns with Jalen," and then people kind of getting on Tom McShay, like, "Yo, man, you already trying to tear the brother down, blah, blah, blah." Uh-huh. And yeah, and then like I think it was Bruce Feldman at the Athletic. Shout out to Bruce, great writer, great. Bruce is the homie. He had a story where he details like, "Oh yeah, nah, Jalen's like teammates think he's a great dude, you know, like he'd be buying one of the walk-ons food every time and shit like that." And I remember like someone sending that to me who's like in the league, not with the Seahawks, who was like, "Mike, buying food does not make him a good dude. Like, go ask some other people." And then the racing thing came out later. It was like, see, so I think Todd McShay's report was not just out of nowhere. You know, actually, I know it wasn't. So yeah, I think deciding that will determine whether they take a guy like Jalen or just scratch him from their board at 5. Maybe they take him later if he falls, but at 5, I think I lean towards them probably. If I've been able to find out this stuff, and I'm not even a scout, I'm sure the Seahawks have found out twice as much, 3 times, 4 times as much. So I think that will be a determining factor. Is what's going on with Jalen, a blip or a trend? If it's a blip, take him. Trend, take someone like Tyree Wilson or someone else. I don't think like the Iowa kid is to be ruled out, or either of the Clemson kids who are D linemen in this draft as well. But yeah, they have to decide that. You have to do your research and figure out if we take this kid, how likely is it that he does something detrimental while he's on our payroll? That's always the calculus with anyone you hire, to be honest. But when they have these public incidences, damn, I gotta find out if that's a word. Like, I don't know if that's a word. Either way, when they have these public displays of a lack of judgment, here we go. See how I worked around that. When they have those, you really got to do even more of your due diligence. And like I think it was someone with us, I think Vic over in the Raiders reported that Jalen's off of their board at 7. Like that's probably not a mistake. But then you got Drew Rosenhaus, Jalen's agent, who's like, we're only meeting with teams in the top 10 because we ain't falling that far. Right. But you see, he's meeting with the Bears and meeting with Philly. They got picks 9 and 10. Right? So that's at least the thought that he could get past Seattle, Detroit, and Atlanta and all that. So, yeah, I think they're going to find out the stuff with Jalen's probably more likely to be a trend and end up going with another defensive player, I think, or just another player in general. It doesn't have to be defense.
This next one comes from Shy Hawk. Seahawks are out of cap space virtually, and they specifically chose not to replace interior defensive line in free agency. Does this seem to point towards Jalen Carter at 5, which I think can be pretty certain if he's there? Or do they draft someone like Brazi or Mozzie Smith at number 5?
Oh, Brian Brissy from Clemson. Yeah, his name is tricky. The other dude, or Mozzie Smith. Yeah, I don't think it necessarily. Here's the thing about D linemen, and it sucks, but you don't really got to take them early. Like the guys that you got to take early, you can kind of feel them ahead of time. Like Dexter Lawrence, Quinnen Williams, Vita Vea. Vita, particularly when you're talking about noses, was like such an obvious, like, okay, this guy's going to be an impact player. And I really don't see that with the guys. And I do think with defensive tackle, they're very similar to nose tackle in particular. They're very similar to running back in like the drop off between like the type of talent you would get in the second round versus the type of talent you would get in the fifth is not that huge. Like, I think last year was such a good illustration of that at the running back spot with like, yeah, Ken Walker and Breece Hall were great. But how much better were they really than Tyson Alger from BYU and Damian Pierce from Houston, both the guys who were on day 3? The gap was not huge. Damian was going to win Rookie of the Year if he finished the year because he was freaking balling. Maybe Breece won it, but yeah. So I think that when it comes to nose tackle, it's very similar. Yeah, you can get Siaki Ika maybe with like pick 30 or whatever, right? But I don't think the drop off between him in terms, especially when you factor in how much they cost, I don't think the drop off between him and who's the guy I was just looking at some tape of the other day, the Coastal Carolina kid. I think his name is Gerard Clark. Like, he'd probably like be a 5th, 6th round pick. I don't think the difference between those two, like, there's a big difference, but I don't think it's like huge enough that you gotta take Mozzie, you gotta take Siaki, or like you're screwed. I think you can wait and take like Keanu Benton in the second round and then get a nose in the third in day 3, like a Gerard Clark or something like that. So I don't think that their interior D-line situation suggests they have to take one with a high pick. If anything, I just think it says they probably have to take multiple. Very similar to how when Doug Baldwin retired, they took 3 receivers that year. I think it was DK, Gary Jennings, and help me, Chris, who was the third? John Ursua was the third one. Like, see, they took one high, yes, but they took 3. That was, I think, the bigger. Same thing when Marshawn retired. They took 3 running backs right after that. So I could see that type of thing happening versus just saying they have to take one early.
This next one comes from Brandon Haddock. What is the overall impression you've gotten from being around peers and professionals on Jalen Carter, and what do you see as a likely scenario for how that might play out?
Yeah, like kind of like how I alluded to earlier, I haven't gotten the sense that he's getting the benefit of the doubt from many of the teams picking high. I do think he will probably be in the top 10. Like, I'd be surprised if he gets past Philly at 10. Because Philly also has another first round pick and they have pick 30. So they can feel like, oh, we're playing with a little bit more house money than some of these other teams. Like probably the Bears or let's say like Detroit probably feels like, man, we can't afford to screw this up. Now they have another pick later too, but they need a lot more than Philly does. So I'm hearing that there's a slide. It's just a matter of how far he's going to slide. Rosenhaus seems to be convinced that he's going in the top 10. Rosenhaus is a great agent, so I can see why he's earning that 3% out there in Florida. He is. So I think Rosenhaus was also Malik McDowell's agent, oddly enough. So I have heard there's a slide. It's just kind of Philly and Chicago are a little bit of the wild cards. Is kind of my read on it. Does he get past the Bears, right? Because they need everything, right? So can they afford to pass on a talent like that? Will Howie Roseman and the Eagles take a shot on him? Because they love building up the trenches, even if it's like a year early, because they've got to replace some guys on their D-line who's like on the wrong side of 30. So I've heard there's a slide. Not sure if he makes it out of the top 10. If he does, then who knows what happens after that. Every team could use Jalen Carter with like pick 12 or whatever. So yeah, I've heard it's going to be a slide for sure. Just a matter of how far.
This next one comes from Fadi Damien. Based on previous drafts, do you think Jalen Carter is still on the Seahawks board?
Whew, man. Probably not at 5. Because that's the thing. The money part is a thing that I didn't think about before, like the combine. Maybe I thought about it around that time. So, for example, let's say the Seahawks were to trade back at 5 and end up with pick 11 from the Titans. I think the 11th pick in this draft gets a signing bonus that's somewhere around like 12 million versus the 5th pick getting one that's around like 21 million. Now, 12 million is still a lot of money on a signing bonus, but that's a huge cash difference. And that matters to teams, particularly when you're risking on a prospect, right? Like, all right, there's a difference in giving a guy 20 million. It's the day he signs versus giving a guy 12. Like that's a lot. So I do think a team like Seattle and Detroit and Indy, I think all these teams probably have the same concerns. The Raiders clearly have them, according to Vic at The Athletic. I trust for Vic's intel on that as well. So I haven't heard too much on the Detroit side. of things. But like, I think all of these teams would probably be like, man, this kid's great. Can we get him with pick 19? Like that would be like the ideal thing I'm hearing. Not as much with Seattle, but just in general on Jalen. And like I think Vic's report that the Raiders have even considered him getting there, and have already considered him getting there and being like, nah, we're not taking. Now they have some other concerns, Henry Ruggs, racing. They gotta avoid that for a few other reasons. But still, I think for a lot of teams in the top 10, top 7 in particular, it's like, all right, he's still on the board, but probably not with our first pick. That seems like to be the feel that I've gotten. I don't know if that's the case for Seattle, but just like generally speaking, that seems to be the case with teams picking in that top 10. Again, I think the wild cards are Chicago and Philly. Does he get beyond them? Because like I said, the more I dig into Jalen, benefit of the doubt's not there. And I'm doing that from my couch in Seattle. So I can only imagine if I was like flying to Georgia to talk to people, it probably doesn't get much better.
This next one comes from Jeff. I was curious, where is this gift from? And Mike and Jeff has mentioned the gift that always asks questions. That is from ex-gymnast. How do you say her name? Sofina de Jesus. She has her own Twitter or YouTube channel where she has fans ask questions, and she had a video in there that says always ask the questions, which is now a gift. So that's where it comes from. But the real question that Jeff wants to ask, Mike, how much impact do you think Jalen Carter's poor performance at the pro day will have on the Seahawks draft decision?
I think that'll matter a lot, because with Jalen, once you lose the benefit of the doubt, you're just everything you do is try to get it back, right? Like let's say the Todd McShay's report, which I think came out early December, the ESPN report. Let's say that's like the starting point of like, ooh, from a team. I'm like, oh damn, there's already some character concerns reports before you even get into our pre-draft bag. That's not good. All right, let me see if this guy can win me over. Like, let's say I'm a D-line coach for a team. Let's say I'm a D-line coach of the Detroit Lions, and I'm so focused on my team that I don't really get into the draft discussions until after our season's over. So I'm the D-line coach of the Lions. I'm like, okay, cool, this guy looks great. All right, well, okay, you guys are saying he's got some concerns. All right, let's go through the pre-draft process. Let's see if he wins us over. Well, he gets arrested at the combine. Yep, not good. I don't know how he met with teams, but then like, all right, cool. He got arrested, but he's pleading no contest. So maybe this is just a blip on the thing. All right, cool. Let's see how he works at a pro day from the D-line coach of like the Lions or something. I get there. God damn, he's heavier now? He can't even finish the work. Oh, come on. You guys are killing me. So like, I do think like that part, it's not just none of these things you look at in a vacuum. You all compile them as like you're getting the guy's like sheet of things as you go through on his draft scouting report, because everyone's got their thing. You got your pros, you got your cons, you got your accolades. You got your pros, you got your cons, you got your accolades, you got your notes, you got some quotes from some coaches at your college, quotes from whoever else. Like you have all this stuff in your file. I think that of all the things that we've seen so far, the pro day thing is probably the most damning thing in the file. Like if you're a team, I think, because like, come on, man, like we need you to perform. Come on, like I know you've been through some shit, but the lights are on. Go. And for him to perform like that, it's particularly when there's been work ethic questions, conditioning questions, how often he had to come off the field in some of their games, like that. All that's just not helping. Like I said, view it from that lens, like. Not just like, oh, he did this thing or did that thing. View it from like a D-line coach picking in the top 10 who's like, who doesn't need a quarterback. If he just jumped in on the pre-draft eval in January, do you think he would take him? Now, it depends on what the rest of the D-line room looks like, I guess. But yeah, it doesn't feel like very good. Like I was very surprised to see Rosenhaus just say, we ain't taking no meetings with anyone outside of the top 10. I was like, damn, you must got some really good intel from Philly and Chicago then. Because obviously those are the teams picking 9 and 10, and maybe he did. Like I said, I didn't say this already, but Rosenhaus has like 200 clients or some shit, so he's plugged in with all the teams. So maybe he did get some good intel, but I was surprised by that. Maybe he's lying. Who knows? But yeah, I think that the pro day thing, when you're trying to win back the benefit of the doubt, that just doesn't help. If I hear in January that your work ethic ain't great, and you show up at your pro day overweight and can't finish the workout, I'm like, well, damn, they was right. Like nothing I've seen is helping so far. The only thing that's helping, I think, I will say this, is that his teammates keep publicly coming out and being like, nah, Jalen's good. He's the homie. He works hard, blah, 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 blah. So that does seem to be helping. But I don't know how much that's helping when there's so much evidence to the contrary out there for public consumption.
This next one comes from Philip at base_Phil95. Do you think the Seahawks will sign another free agent center, guard, or will they address both in the draft?
Yeah, I just don't think they have the money for it. Like they've been, when we talk, I think one of our questions later will get to this too. They've really painted themselves into a corner with this money thing. It dried up fast, like way faster than it should have. And I think some of their philosophies are got their books in a chokehold right now. And John Snyder gave a great quote on whatever radio station on his radio hit on the John Snyder show. He gave a great quote about restructuring contracts, and basically he's like, nah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to kick the can down the road if we don't have to, because we want our books to be clean every year, not just this year. And that's fine if that's their strategy and that's their philosophy. But it does put them in a bind where, and while some other teams are like restructuring deals to keep their dudes, restructuring their quarterbacks deal or restructuring some of their high priced dudes deals like the Saints do. Like they restructure Kamara and stuff like that, or whoever else is making money on their team, Cam Jordan, so they can fit guys in. And the Seahawks are just like, nah, if we need room, we're just cut guys. It's like, man, okay, that does create room, but now you need a body. You know, that's tough. The only time I think, well, I'd have to look this up to be sure, but when they have restructured contracts, it's been like specifically for a dude. Like I think they restructured Doug Baldwin's deal to fit in maybe Sheldon Richardson. I think they restructured Russ's deal one time to fit in Dwayne Brown. Maybe I'm getting those flipped, but you guys get my point. Is that like when they restructure, it's usually like, okay, because we're getting this specific dude already, not just let's just have money and then go shopping. And again, that's their philosophy. That's fine. But then you get to points where like, oh, damn, we don't got no depth at center. What are we going to do? It's like, well, now you have to draft. It's like, damn, we don't got no depth at guard. What are we going to do? And that is the spot that they're in. I believe Joey Hunt's on like a futures deal or whatever, but still, that's just not a great place to be in. So yeah, I think they're going to have to draft guard, center. They should draft someone who like expertise in both. Like, don't draft a guard who can play center. Draft a center and draft a guard. I think that's where they're going to have to be in at that point. I'm a big Osiris Torrance guy. I'm a big John Michael Schmitz guy. I'm becoming more of a Tippmann guy from Wisconsin. The more I watch a little bit of him too. I'm a big fan of what's my man name? The big TCU dude, Avila, I think is his name. Like, there's some guys I like that they should take, particularly Osiris. If they get Osiris, like, we're gonna spend 30 minutes on him on the draft recap show that night. So yeah, I think they're gonna have to though. But it's not just it's because of how they've gone about this, which like right now their old line looks great. Like they got 5 starters. They should be all competent guys. None of them costing a bunch of money right now. The highest cap hit might be Charles Cross, which is like, okay, that's ideal. Maybe it's Phil Haynes. Doesn't matter. They're all making like under $4 million this year. That's great. But like somebody goes down, now you're screwed. And you just don't want to be in that spot. And you got a bunch of guys on 1-year deals. Like D-Lou, Evan Brown, and Phil Haynes are all on expiring deals. That's not good. So yeah, they got to draft.
This one comes from Chihuahua Loco, and it kind of ties into something you kind of answered or hinted to towards the fact that free agency errors seem to blow up the wad early, ran out of money before they can fill the D-line spot. So they want to know, Mike, what's your take? Do you see something happening? Like, are they going to make a move? How do you see this working out?
Yeah, not Chihuahua Loco is a crazy name. Sorry. When you said it, I was like, what? Yeah, I don't know if they've made the blow in their wad early is also a crazy thing. This whole question is just there's a lot going on there. But yeah, I think the D-line, the D-line stuff, honestly, their whole roster, it seemed like they went into free agency with a plan, and the markets kind of got wonky on them, and everything just kind of moved in the way they didn't expect. Like, even listen to John Schneider, he said like, oh, we didn't think we'd be able to afford Draymond Jones. I don't think they expected Cody Barton to sign a deal on the first day of free agency. Like, I wonder, like, did his agent even negotiate? Like, did he just take the first deal they got and ran with it? Cody signed very early. But like that probably threw things off. Getting Draymond, they didn't think they'd be able to get him. So getting him, how does that affect the rest of your plan? They didn't think they'd be able to get Julian Love. Okay, well, then they got him. Oh, dang. But that really didn't factor too much into the plan, you think. Like, they probably thought they were going to get outbid. All right, well, shoot. Well, now we need a linebacker. Where are all the linebackers at? Well, now we got to pay Bobby. Well, they probably didn't have that in the plan right away. So I think they went in with a plan, and a lot of things happened that forced him to pivot, and it has left him in a weird spot where they basically have like three D linemen. There are three interior D linemen: Miles Adams, Jaron Reed, and Draymond Jones. That's tough. Like having to cutting Al saved like $3.5 million. That ain't nothing. Like 3.5 million. You got to sign a guy for at least $1 million. So what your net savings is like $2 million, 2.5. What are you doing with that to lose Al? And yeah, I don't know how they're going to be able to afford Puna. So yeah, I agree with Chihuahua Loco here. Like something went wrong here. Like they did however they gauge these markets and who they'd be able to afford and who they couldn't, who they'd keep and who they couldn't. Like it seemed like they did a lot of audible calling, at least from the outside looking in. It seemed like a lot of audibles were called, and it put them in a spot where you're looking at the D line depth and you're like, well, I hope Jaron Reed can play 70 snaps a game because they're just so thin here. I don't think this was all like according to plan. I think that happens with a lot of teams, though. To be fair, like every team can go in with a plan, and then like Christian Kirk gets $18 million a year from Jacksonville. Now every receiver costs $1 bazillion. Throws off the plan. Like I get it, that's fine. But yeah, now to get to the point where you don't re-sign Puna, don't re-sign LJ, have to cut Al, cut Quentin Jefferson, cut Shelby Harris. It's like, damn, dog. Do you plan on having a team? So like Pete Carroll and John use the word like we're gonna have to have some recruiting be done. Like guys recruiting free agents here basically to play for the vet minimum. You do not want to be in a place where you got to recruit a bunch of vet minimum dudes to fill out your roster. That's tough. That's a tough spot. So yeah, I think Chihuahua Loco here, I'm gonna keep saying that name, it asked a very good question. Like I do think that a lot of things happened that they didn't anticipate, and it put them in a spot where now they have more urgent needs than they probably wanted to have coming into the draft. They probably knew they were going to have to draft for some spots, but now like I don't think they'd imagine having to like have an urgent need at nose tackle and like 3 technique. That's pretty rough.
Next one, we'll stay with this. Chihuahua Loco, your boy Mike. I have a different one. Say it's 2025, and Pete is walking out the door. He's retiring. Who would we like to see them go after? That's a fascinating question. Mike, you want to take a stab in the dark first?
Yeah, and I feel bad for Chihuahua Loco here that I don't have a better answer but here's why I don't really know. And it's not because there's not other good football minds here. Like some people are like, Mike, they should have to hire Eric Bieniemy or something. It's like, yeah, maybe. But the thing I've learned with head coaches in the NFL is how well you know football or can scheme is such a small percentage of the job. And I not to de-emphasize that part of the job. I'm just not over the moon about guys who can do that. Like you being schemer guy, it just doesn't move me. Like when you're a head coach, I need you to be a leader. I need you to be a culture setter. I need people to want to run through a wall for you. And it's not even like you give a bunch of passionate speeches at halftime and shit. This ain't no Disney movie. But like, there's so much, like who's a leader that's so hard to glean from afar. Just because you are the best offensive coordinator or the best special teams coordinator or whatever on whatever team does not mean you'll be a good head coach because you're probably not going to be calling the plays. I'm going to need you to like, how well do you handle the media? How well do you deal with crises behind the scenes? Like, how well are you going to deal with your starting left tackle and your starting left guard hating each other behind the scenes? Are you going to be able to manage that type of tension and to put a functional product on the field? Like that's Pete Carroll's strongest attribute by far. John Snyder would say it's the getting the best out of people. That's probably his number 2. For me, it's managing. Like it's a management thing. Like he had one of his players sock one of his players into a trash bin the night before the Super Bowl, and they won by 30. Like maybe they were going to win by 30 regardless, but like the fact that the culture was that sustainable was just, I mean, they eventually had to trade Percy, but still they made it through that game. And it's just like that, managing Sherm, managing Mike B, managing all of those personalities to Byron, not Byron. What's the other man? What's my man's name was in jail? Oh, Brandon Browner, Marshawn, like Russ, and all that came with him. All of that, Doug Baldwin. There was just so much to manage there, and that's just so hard to figure out whether a guy is built for that. Sometimes a guy doesn't even know whether he's built for that, like himself. So I think it's very tough. So the only candidates that I've really got even a close to a feel for that on are the ones who are already here. So like I would lean towards someone like Clint Hurt, just because I feel like he has, in talking with him and people who played for him and worked with him, and just like he has that, that part. But it's so hard for me to just be like, yeah, hire Kellen Moore. Why? Because he runs a good offense. That's like 10% of his job if he becomes the head coach of the Seahawks. And that's an important 10%, but like there's so much other stuff to deal with. So yeah, I wish for Chihuahua Loco I had a better answer for you, but I just don't, and I feel like for valid reasons, man. There's so much stuff that's hard to figure out. There's a ton, Chris, and we've seen over the years guys who make great coordinators, and they get to being a head coach, and the shit just hits the fan so fast. Like I think right now the best example is the Raiders. Like Josh McDaniels not a head coach, man. He's a fire offensive coordinator. Great. Lead the building though, brother, and it becomes harder. From Todd Bowles, probably another good example too. So yeah, it's not even a white or black thing. It's like those two guys both probably not built for it. So yeah, sorry, Chihuahua, I do not have a great answer for you.
In a perfect world, I would say I like Clint Hurt. I would also go with Sean Desai, who just got the defensive coordinator position with the Bears. Former
Eagles.
Seahawks coach. Oh, it's the Eagles.
Yeah,
My apologies. Don't know
Eagle
why I thought it was
DC.
the Bears.
Because he
So
used to.
that helps, Mike. That helps. Let's see. You know what? Mike Tomlin and Doug Peterson. I like Doug. That's all I have for you. I like Doug. I know he just.
Mike Tomlin's another good example. Sorry to cut you off. Of a guy
You're
who's
good.
like leader guy. He's leader guy. That's what you
Yeah.
need.
But I would also Doug Peterson would be on that list as well for sure. I like what
Ooh.
Doug.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I keep cutting you off.
Someone who came into your head, Mike, when I said Doug Peterson.
Harbaugh.
Which one though? You going Michigan or?
Oh, sorry. There's two.
You're good.
I said it. You're right. I said that if there was one. Jim.
Okay. Okay.
John's the coach of the Ravens. Jim is the coach of the Michigan Wolverines. Yeah, Jim. Jim would be.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
That would be an interesting. That'd be an interesting one as well. And like Saban, obviously, but he probably wouldn't take it. But like,
absolutely not.
Making so much freaking money down there in Alabama, it's absurd. Yo, I mean, he's rich, so it doesn't really matter. But the cost of living between Tuscaloosa and like Bellevue, where Nick would move, is
Canyon.
ridiculous. Like, yo, he would be like, yo, Nick would be like, I mean, he's worked everywhere, so he knows, but Nick would be like, they taking how much out my taxes up here versus what he's making down there in Tuscaloosa?
10%, sir.
Dog, it would be I'd be shit. Anyway, we can go to the next question. But yeah, I just thought about that. But yeah, Nick and Jim would probably be two dudes I would think about.
Okay. Let's go here. This is from Dan Teeter. Which is more important? Balanced roster or an elite position group?
This is a really fascinating question. Another one that could really be broken down into parts with examples from across the recent CBA. Like that could be a whole podcast. But I lean towards a balanced roster. And I say this not because obviously balance is important versus having like 5 all-pro, if you had like 5 all-pro DBs or something like that, it's obviously great. And you're probably going to win a Super Bowl with that. But the roster, the balanced roster part, I think about it for 2 reasons. One for the O-line, and secondly for the defense as a whole. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, whereas like you can scheme around some offensive stuff. Like if the 11th guy on the field on your offense is not like a dude, you can easily scheme around that. Even if it's like a left guard, like, all right, give him a double team, give him some help, something like that. Even if it's a tight end who's not a great blocker, you can help that. You got a receiver who's not like elite. All right, put him on the backside of the route concept and don't throw to him. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just ways to get around those type of things. Whereas if you're the 11th guy on my defense and you are a liability, eventually that's going to be a problem for us.
Yep.
Like hopefully it's not, but like more likely than not, by the time we get to where we want to be as a team, depending on what position you play, we're going to get attacked somehow. And that could be our downfall, whether it's just as simple as that 1 third down play that you give up that cost us the big game or whatever. Like, so whether you're the linebacker that can't cover the other team's tight end, like there's always, it's just so hard. And obviously I can take you off the field, but particularly if you're like a corner or a safety and you're my 11th guy, like 11th and like you're my 11th weakest player. That just feel like it can just come to bite at the wrong time. So I mean, that, and again, that can happen on the O line too. Like eventually, there's only so much help or so much protection sliding we can do. Like there's going to be some things where you just got to buck up, but and that's where you get beat. So yeah, I think that's where it's a fascinating question because you'd also have to define like what balance looks like and what elite looks like. Like, are we talking like extremes of elite? Like, do I have 5 all-pro offensive linemen? Because I honestly might take that. Like, because I don't care who is at quarterback or at running back. We're going to score 30 points. If you give me 5 all-pro offensive linemen, don't really give a shit who else is on the team. But I think just in terms of defense in particular, I need there to be some balance. Like, I would like some high-end guys at every spot or a few spots like corner, D-end. But as long as my 11th guy is damn near as good as my top dude, like I think we have a better chance of getting where we want to be. Otherwise that other dude could get us exposed.
I would say a balance as well, and I would look at simply just the fact, okay, let's say you do have an elite position group. What happens when one guy goes down?
That too.
Now you're left with maybe 3 elite guys and one guy that you're like, he's not going to see the field because we got this elite guy. But in a sport like football, where injuries are so much part of the game, you would need, I would think, something called balance. And when someone goes down, okay, it's the next man up. He might be a 83 overall, but man, does he do his job really well? And the whole isn't, you're not like, damn, we notice a big difference between player A leaving and player B filling in. Whereas player A gets hurt, player B fills in, nothing really changes. Other than that fact, he's not starting for whatever reason. Maybe he's not better at doing certain things, but when he gets in there, you don't notice it unless you go back and watch the film and say, oh, you could have did that better. But I would say, yeah, I would go with the balanced roster. I feel there's more room for error. There's more room for if something goes wrong. Well, man, our team's pretty good overall. We lost one guy, but you know what? We can fill in and we can make it work. We're not panic mode now that we lost our best, quarterback scenario, for example. You have an elite quarterback and you don't have a backup. When someone gets hurt and it's your quarterback, you end up looking like the Rams.
Right. Yeah. They were a team with like just elite players, not even
players.
Yeah.
And you lose one, and now your season can be gone like that. So I would argue that you want to have throughout the roster some balance. You want to be able to just get guys in the right spot, right place, and hopefully if someone goes down, the next man up and it all works out. Obviously, that's not always the case, but the Philadelphia Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, they lost Carson Wentz, who was having an MVP season. Nick Foles, he's solid. He comes in, and what does he do? Delivers the Super Bowl. There's just one example of having a little balance. No one picked the Eagles to win with Nick Foles. No one thought they're going to win the Super Bowl, but him being just a guy that knows his role, he was able to come in, and he kept the team balanced. They were able to sustain whatever Carson Wentz had been doing. They sustained it with Nick Foles, and they ultimately won the Super Bowl. Will that be done again? I don't know, because balance is not. I don't know if teams are looking to try to be balanced. Maybe they are trying to grab a star here and there and just push all the chips in like the Rams did a few years ago when they did win it all. They pushed all the chips in, got the stars they needed, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, OBJ, and they won it all. And then the next year, it didn't work out. So I'm going with balanced roster just over an elite position group.
Yeah, and it's tough because what does that even mean? Do you have guys who are all like the 15th best player at their position versus having all guys again who are like all the best? Like if you give me 5 all-pro defensive linemen on one team, like
it's hard to say no.
Yeah, I mean maybe we can overcome some things, but then like okay, well how good are we have to really answer this question, we have to know more of the specifics. But in general, I do think having depth at a lot of positions is probably the more sustainable way to go but then when you do have those high end guys, they can mask other deficiencies on the roster, but that's tough to sustain. As again, like you said, the Rams are showing us that can work for like an 8-game stretch to just have a top heavy ass roster, but you're more sustainable if we like have more balance. The Chiefs are actually pretty bit more balanced than people think.
Yeah,
like
they really are. They don't have elite corners back there. They don't have elite linebackers. They're all just good. They're solid. They get the job done. They do what they need to do, and they have a megastar quarterback.
Yeah, well, they have like multiple All-Pro talents as well. But it's not just all like one. No team's
No,
ever just gonna have it all just like isolated to one position group. That's what
exactly.
you're about
Yeah.
that example. But yeah, you do need high-end players, but I do think like, yeah, you wanna spread it out. You want everyone in your position group uh to be able to ideally, here's how you would want it. You want everyone except for quarterback is only one of them really. But like you would want everyone in your position group at least to have one guy who is so good he masks the deficiencies of another guy in the group. Like that's kind of loosely one way to look at it. That's tough. That's unrealistic, but that'd be an ideal way. Like, okay, if our weak side linebacker is not super great, our other one's Fred Warner. And if, it's like if our right cornerback is not super great, well, our other one is Sauce Gardner. Right? Like, like it's not like balanced, so to speak, but it kind of is if you think about it. Like one dude's not great, but the other guy's the top of the top. You know what I mean? Kind of averages out. But it's so tough because like every team is just trying to get elite players at all spots. Right? Ain't nobody just like, let's just be balanced. So it's kind of tricky.
This next one comes from Pokey the Unicorn. Not a lot of cap room left for moves. Who is the next player you think that gets restructured? His deal, that is.
Yeah, I think I don't think no one's been restructured, so there's that. All they do really is offer guys pay cuts. Like we talked about before, John Snyder really just like, I don't really like kicking the can down the road, which is so fascinating. So quickly to answer the question, I think the most realistic thing they could do that makes the most sense, that's not just kicking the can down the road just because, is to extend Chenna Nwosu, if that's what Chenna wants. It's actually probably in Chenna's best interest to ball out again and become like a $25 million a year player or something like that. Whatever the going rate for edge rushers is right now, I'm not sure. But if Draymond Jones just got $17 million a year or whatever, when the cap balloons next year, Chenna hits free agency at like age 27, he's going to get a bag or however old he'll be. So that would be the one that makes the most sense to me. You can extend Noah Fant as well. I'd wait and see on that one, particularly when you got a really good tight end class here coming up. So, but the reason I wanted to get that part out of the way first, because I do think John Snyder and Pete Carroll are in such a tough spot with that, in that like their philosophy is let's have a championship roster every year, but they're also like let's never kick the can down the road. It's like that's tough. That's a tough space to coexist in because like people are looking at the Seahawks books right now and they're like, Mike, Chris, why don't they just restructure Quandre, restructure Tyler, move this money around with Jamal, extend Chenna? That'll free up like 20 mil. And it's like John Snyder's answer to that would be we don't want to kick the can down the road because we want to also have a championship caliber roster in 2024 without cap casualties. And it's just like, I hear you, but it's so hard to. It's like playing for the future and the present at the same time. That's very tough to balance. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with their philosophy there, but I'm just pointing out that how that philosophy is okay, but it can put you in spots where it's like now you're cutting players, like to just be so your books are cleaner in 2024 and beyond. It's like, well, if you're cutting players, you're also not putting yourself in position to win a championship. If you're cutting the Al Woods and you're cutting the Shelby and you're cutting the Gabe Jackson, it's like, well, great, your books are clean next year. You also don't have any players, so it's a tough balance. And maybe like Gabe and Shelby aren't the best examples of that, but you guys get my point. If you're not willing to kick the can down the road, kicking the can down the road to me is not as detrimental as cutting the guys in the present. They're both equally have their drawbacks to me. Like, yeah, pushing money forward is tough, but so is cutting guys because now I need another guy. If I restructure a deal, I don't need another guy. I have the cash already. Or I can get a better guy because I have more cash. So then I would be able to get if I was just only looking for guys on veteran minimum. So it's I'm glad we got the answer to that out of the way. But I do think going forward, that's just such an interesting philosophical thing for the Seahawks because it's putting them in a bind to want to have clean books going forward, but also want to put the best roster on the field in the present every year. I don't think you can realistically do that every year unless you're hitting home runs in the draft every year.
This next one comes from our guy Ryan Turner at Turns44. 1 year removed from trading Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Was the right decision made, and could the decision to trade Russell Wilson possibly be the most critical pivot point in the history of the Seahawks franchise if they win a Super Bowl in the next, say, 1 to 5 years?
That is a good question. I do think so. Here's the thing about the Russ trade. it wasn't like this no-brainer. Like, oh, Russ is gonna stink, so let's bounce him, and Gino is gonna be our guy of the future, type of thing. Like, they did luck into it a little bit in that, like, they didn't think Russ would play this bad, and they didn't think Gino would play that good. Like, I do want to throw that out there. But I do think I don't even know if it was like the right or wrong move necessarily, because I don't think it gets they're not I think they're the draft is where they were gonna need to hit anyway to get to the Super Bowl, no matter who their quarterback was. Like, because I think we can probably all agree that Russ was not gonna play that bad as he did last year if he was still in Seattle. He wouldn't have. There's just no reason to think he would have done that. Like with Pete Carroll's system, the weapons they had around, like even if you think they don't get Charles Cross because they don't trade Russ, like they would have went around the offseason to obviously have a left tackle, right? So they wouldn't have just had no one. So I think it was yeah, I don't know, man. What do you think? I don't think it was right or wrong decision. I'm kind of just like I'm indifferent on either side of it, because I do think if they traded Russ, they were probably going to make the playoffs and lose in the first round. Like they traded Russ, lost in the first round. I do think this year they're probably gonna be a playoff team and maybe make the second round. I think if they'd have kept Russ or traded him maybe this offseason instead of last or whatever, I think that they'd be a team. The route to it would look different. Let's put it that way so I can let you talk. I think they would trading Russ or keeping Russ. It's just you're just choosing a different route to the same end result. In either scenario, for me, I just think that like the ceiling on the team, unless you just hit home runs in the draft, which again you would have had to do either way, I don't think that you were gonna like you're changing the destination. You're just changing the route. So for me, it really doesn't matter whether it was the right or wrong one.
To be honest, had Russ not got hurt, who knows what type of Russ we would have seen. Him getting hurt really just sent things into a frenzy because he wanted to come back because Russ is a competitor. He wants to win. A man wants to win multiple Super Bowls. Who knows if he doesn't get traded? To your point, maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they don't. Obviously, they don't have, you mentioned Charles Cross in the draft and other things, but I honestly couldn't tell you how big of a difference it does or does not make. They still had holes with Russ. Obviously, Russ wanted to do certain things his way. Pete wanted to do his things his way. Would they see eye to eye if he stayed? I don't know.
Yeah,
now that
you're right. That part is important too. But then it's like I don't. Just put this. Do you think they're going? Do you think? Yeah, this will make the question quick so we can move. Do you think they're going to win a Super Bowl? Just said they didn't trade Russ. Do you think they would have won a Super Bowl within 5 years? So from 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026. Do you think they would have won a Super Bowl in that 5-year window if they kept Russ?
Probably. And I think they can win it with Gino.
Oh, okay.
But that's just because of what they have, and they have Pete. For someone that was saying, oh, you know what, stick with Russ. I was wrong. I can admit that. Okay. They stuck with Pete, and we saw sticking with Pete works out well for you. Meanwhile, you stick with Russ, you saw what happened in Denver. Forest fire. Everything burned. No one survived.
No one survived. Russ is still alive. He's still there.
Barely. He got barely. He got a new coach. We'll see how this works out. But we see that Sean Payton is taking things over. He ain't playing the Russ game. Oh, no. We're doing it this way. Okay? I haven't heard anything else what Russ plans to do, but here's what we're doing. So, needless to say, I think they win a Super Bowl in 5 years.
Interesting.
With Gino or Russ, because they got Pete. And Pete, for the most part, not the most part, Pete knows what he's doing. And based on what we've seen, Mike says the window is to win now. Okay, let's say they don't win it this year. How close were they this season? What happened? How'd they lose? Is it something they can improve on? Do they need a new quarterback? We'll find out a lot about this team for this season moving forward about how they're going to look in the future. Because Pete, what does he have? 3 more years on his deal?
He's signed for 2025.
So, yeah, he is 72 years old. He'll be 75, 74, 75 when his time is up. Maybe he's kicking the can and he's done. And to the question that we got from Schwab Loco, who's going to come in? Is it going to be Clint Hurt? It's going to be a new reign at this time. It's going to be someone else who's going to have their imprint on what they want to do. But I do believe that whether it's Russ or Geno, whoever was here, they would have a chance at a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. Would they win it? I don't know. But I'll say this. They would definitely be in it. And that's just because I believe in what Pete. I believe in what Pete's doing. And he's showing it year in, year out. So I'm excited to see what this team can do this season. And speaking of predictions and whatnot, this next one is from Playoff God. Record prediction for next season, Mike?
I'd probably go with 9-8 again. That would probably be my. I gotta see the defense, man. Like that's just that's where I mean it's April, so like who knows what the team looks like by September even. But so that's where I'm at with it. The defense, I think right now everything has just been lateral to me. Like you lose Puna, at least for now. You lose Puna, Al, Shelby, Quentin. You replace them with Jay Reed and Draymond. To me, you didn't get better, you didn't get worse. You just did things, right? Like it's like I don't know. I can't think of a cool analogy off the top of my head, but you just did things. So I really am not. I'm not moved by that. I think the offense is probably a push.
Well, they lost running backs, man. They don't have a running back.
They got K9. You got K9.
And no backups. And DJ.
K9 and DJ. Yeah. K9 and DJ, yeah. Yeah, and I think Geno will be better. I think Evan Brown may be an upgrade on Austin Blythe. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really watched enough to really know for sure. I don't know if Phil Haynes would be like as full-time, be an upgrade over Gabe. So yeah, and I think some guys will get better too, but like, I don't know, Devin Bush and Bobby, I'll see how that goes, So yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at least right now. The draft could change some things, especially if they get some guys I think are going to be impact players, but right now I think that, they're like a slightly above 500 team. I don't know if Vegas has win totals out yet for all the teams, but if they do, if the Seahawks are like around 8.5 or something like that, that would probably be where I'd put them, and then take the over on it.
I too am with you. I'm gonna go. I'll just say 10 wins. Just right now, I'll say 10-7. That's without seeing what they've done in the draft. We'll say 10-7. Ask us again after the draft. Maybe they're 11-6. Who knows? But right now, I'll say 10-7, just based off of everything that they've done so far and before the draft. Excuse me.
Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find I'm pretty sure some came out because my homie was texting me about some Eagles ones. Seahawks. This is legalsportsreport.com. Oh, these where are these odds from? They are from looks like DraftKings. So we got Seahawks at 8.5. That's about right. Boom. That's the gambler in me. I knew that right off the bat. 8.5 is about what I would have for them, and I'd take the over, slightly over. The Jets are at 9.5. Oh, well, never mind. They're assuming they're getting Rodgers. My bad. I was like, what the hell? Jets roster is not that good. But yeah, with Aaron Rodgers, it's much better. Never mind. So yeah, 9-8 sounds about right.
This last one comes from KP. Everyone is talking about Seahawks need for a wide receiver 3, but maybe they have one in Dareke Young. What are the odds the Seahawks don't draft or sign a wide receiver and just roll with their week as wide receiver number 3?
Yeah, I don't think the odds of that I think are real low. Just not drafting a receiver at all. I mean, and just saying because we got Dareke. Dareke's good, but I think he has like 2 career catches. So I mean, which is not his fault, but you can only catch the ball when it's thrown to you. I think he only got targeted like once, twice. So he's got some potential for sure, but potential is just another word, means you haven't done anything yet. So I think the odds of that are real low. I do like him for that spot though, but I do think you got to bring when I think of receiver 3, and I don't think of it as like there's 2 things that I think are important. It's the ability to complement the 2 guys who are above you, however that looks. So if the 2 guys below you or above you are like shiftier dudes, okay, do you have top end speed? Like I think about like the Chargers have a different need at wide receiver 3 than the Seahawks. Like the Seahawks have like more of like an underneath receiver need, whereas like the Chargers need someone who can fly because all their receivers are slow, right? They got Mike Williams, they got Keenan Allen. They need someone who can take the top off. That's not every team's need, right? So you got to look at receiver 3 needs based on how well you complement what the other guys do. That's the important one. And then the third one, or the part two for me when I look at wide receiver 3 is, are you good enough that if it's third down or just an obvious throwing down, doesn't matter when it is, an obvious throwing down in a crunch time situation, if we know the coverage is going to be rotated to our other two guys, do we trust you enough for you to win your matchup and be the first read on the play? Because that's really where your wide receiver 3 matters to me. Like, it's a depth piece too, but we're talking about when everyone's healthy. Like, if it's 3rd and 7 and we need a catch, and we know they're good, and we're the Bengals and they're double teaming Chase, and we know they're going to put their best corner on Higgins. Can we go to you, Tyler Boyd, as a first read on this play to make it happen? And the answer for Tyler Boyd is yes. He's nice like that. So I think that's my criteria when I look at it. And could Dareke be that? Possibly. I just think that you can find that in the draft, this particular draft too. So that's kind of how I look at the criteria. I don't look at the numbers as much because wide receiver 3 only gets so many targets, right? I think D Moore had a year where it was like he had like 35 catches and like 400 yards, something like that. Like that's, or 500 maybe. That's like a fine wide receiver 3 season if you really think about it. Because if you factor in tight ends and running backs catching the ball too. So when I'm looking at it, I look at those two things. Do you complement what the other two guys do that are ahead of you? And if it comes down to it, can we make you the first read on a play? That's why I think more teams should be after like Odell. Because like, yeah, Odell's not a receiver 1 anymore. But boy, if it's 3rd and 8, Chris, and we're in a divisional round of the playoffs in the 4th quarter, and they have their slot receiver on Odell because they're double teaming our other guys or bracketing them or whatever, I do trust throwing it to 13 that he's going to win that matchup and catch the ball, or 3, whatever jersey number he's wearing. So yeah, like, could Dareke be that? Sure. Could DS be that? Sure. But I really would draft a guy, because I do think there's guys in this draft who fit those two, who could fit those two criteria. My favorite is Jackson Smith-Njigba in the first round. Second round, I like the Cedric Tillman, or just day 2, I like Tillman. And then day 3, I like Jonathan Mingo. Those would be my draft crushes that I would go for at those spots.
Well, look at that. I would say when we were breaking down plays during the regular season, I broke down a route that Dareke Young did, and that was something that he just needed to work on. Obviously, he probably didn't have the timing down, as you alluded to on that episode that I broke down his route, but he'll get better with more reps that he does. Obviously, you mentioned he only had a couple of targets and caught 2 passes. He's going to have to get better and be in those situations where he's on the field and showcase his skill set. So with that being said, I would love to see Dareke Young get an opportunity and showcase his skill set, but I also understand the team wants to win now. And if they could find someone free agency, or hell, why aren't the Seahawks going after OBJ? Is he too much money? If he's available, I would say
I think it'd be too much bread. They can't afford it.
But they can definitely draft a guy. So with that being said, while I'm a fan of Dareke, as I'm sure you are too, JP, I think the Seahawks are in an interesting position where, okay, yeah, we know we saw what Dareke was doing, but we want it now. And if he can't deliver now, that's where they will end up drafting a younger talent, and they can compete. And we can see, okay, and actually not JP, it's KP. We can see who's really going to be out there when Mike hinted it's 3rd and 8. Are you going to be able to get open, make the play for a first down, because Tyler Lockett and DK, the coverages are forcing us to use you or a tight end for this play here. And that's where that's where you need to step up. So potentially we'll see more of that next season with Dareke. I thought he showed flashes. They had him doing all types of stuff in the backfield. I think, Mike, you even tweeted it out. All the times you saw Dareke doing different things, whether it resulted in positive or not, he was out there doing it. He's only going to get better with more reps that he gets. So we will see what happens with that. I'm not opposed to the Seahawks drafting or signing a free agent if they can make it work money-wise. But that's my take on the Seahawks and their search for a consistent 3rd wide receiver in the offense.
I think Marquise Goodwin was a good fit for them too. Like I wouldn't even be opposed to that. Like the Bucs game, the catch he had, like I think it was a 4th down catch for like a touchdown. It was like a good. I think all 3, him and Tyler and DK, were on the field, and it was just like, can I go to you? Now Marquise wasn't the first read on that, I don't think, but he proved to be a guy like, oh, I can go to you. You can win a matchup if I need you to.
Caught a fade.
Yeah, well, that was against the Chargers. But like that Bucks one was like Gino was rolling. I think it was fourth down too. Like, fourth quarter, Marquise was really good for that. And to put in perspective, I looked up those demo numbers before we get out of here. In 2018, David Moore had 26 catches for 445 yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2020, which was last season with the Seahawks, he had 35 catches, 417 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So like that's decent receiver 3 stuff. But if you notice, not a lot of volume, right? So I think that in 2018, that was before they even got DK. So that's when he was the number 3, like kind of. I think they still had Doug Baldwin and Tyler that year too. So my point is, volume doesn't matter to me as much as like, can we go to you? And the thing that to wrap it up on Dareke and KP's question, two things that will make me be like, okay, maybe Dareke does have this. He had that catch against Charvarius Ward on Thursday Night Football in Week 15. It got called back on it because of a hold on Abe Lucas, but there was like a back shoulder go ball, and I was like, oh, he got that in his bag. And then I think 2 weeks later, he cooked Sauce Gardner on a go ball. The ball ends up going somewhere else. But if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see number 83 just wide open and number 1 trailing him. So like he can grow into that. But there's so many guys I think in this draft who like are that like today. So if they're there, take them.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We want to thank you for all the Twitter questions. We appreciate all the love and support. We are again at 2,400 subscribers. So we thank you guys for all coming over to Seahawks Man to Man on YouTube, subscribing. We appreciate it. Tell a friend, as Mike would say, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, because we have more content coming for you, especially with the draft just about 3.5 weeks out. Mike, is there anything you would like to add before we get out of here?
I just want to shout out everybody who's been rocking all the draft stuff. We appreciate the love. It's been really fun. We're going to keep it going. I just need the draft to get here, to be honest. But yeah, until then, appreciate the love and support. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.